Hi, welcome back to the AHR Usability Tutorials. Today we're talking about expert review, heuristic evaluation methods. In the previous discussions, we've talked about the history of heuristic evaluation. We gave you a couple of examples of design principles, and now we're talking about how you actually deploy a heuristic evaluation. After you have collected your samples of movements through the screen or various interfaces, one of the things you have to do after you define which principles are violated is rate those problems for the severeness of that violation. Part of the severity rating is to help you bin things into minor problems that should be fixed and catastrophic problems that really have to be fixed now. There are a number of different kinds of scales, again, for how severity of heuristic evaluation may be scored. Our score here is 0 to 4, with 0 being no issue and 4 being a catastrophic problem. You'll find other similar types of ratings typically on a 0 to 4 scale. The idea behind the 0 scale might be across two evaluators, one person might have marked this as a violation of a design principle, and the second reviewer, upon looking at the compiled list, might say, hey, you know what? I don't think that's really an issue. And having the 0 here allows them to indicate that for them, this is not actually a problem. Minor problems are often thought to be cosmetic. They might increase burden unnecessarily, those sorts of things. Whereas moderate problems and catastrophic problems, as well as major problems, increase the risk to patients, increase the difficulty of using the system. One of the ways we think of catastrophic problems are the system shouldn't be released with these problems in place. So again, you're going to select a given task or a way of moving through the system to collect the screens that you're then going to evaluate for fit to design principles. For each problem, you will identify the design violation. You'll then compile a list across all the evaluators and mark each of those problems for severity. Once you're done, you're going to go in and actually document all the findings. So you're going to want to talk about where did the problem occur, what was the usability problem that was uncovered, what was the usability guideline that was violated, and what was the severity score. Here you can see that there was a system that we looked at that had a medication list in the e-prescribing screen. Part of the issue was that the concepts in the drop-down list were not fully visible, meaning something got truncated that you couldn't see. And there was actually multiple violations here. The violations included visibility, you couldn't see everything, as well as recognition and recall, because once you learned what was being truncated, you had to remember what was being truncated rather than simply being able to see it. You may have multiple violations per problem, and then you have to decide as part of your process, are you going to score each one of those problems with that single violation with an independent score, meaning this was one problem of a truncated list. Are you going to score visibility as one item and recognition and recall as the second item and then sum across the two for the problem? Or are you going to maintain separate lists? And it really is a question of how you would like to organize information and how often the problems occur across screens. So this issue with truncation is probably not going to only occur on this screen. And so you may want to keep things more unified so that you can find truncated items as being a problem that needs to be dealt with across all screens. So it's a way of trying to group your violations across problems and across marks. As I mentioned before, the details for planning and executing the method is basically you have to decide on the scope of the review, on the scenarios you're going to walk through and how you're going to move through the system. What data sets are you going to use to actually input information into the system to trigger pop-ups, trigger the use of the system? You need to have the evaluators perform independently, both on the discovery of the violations as well as the scoring. And as part of our process, we always suggest that you not only analyze your results, but you also make recommendations for redesign. So rather than just handing over a list of problems, what are some of the solutions that would better fit with those design principles than what was actually produced? Here's an example of one of our reports. This is in a format where you can see that we've listed it by meaningful use case, given a screen ID, outlined what the widgets were, defined the usability problem, the heuristics violated, and as we said, a summative score for the severity of those violations. The advantages of heuristic evaluation: it's easy to learn, it's easy to use. As we said, it's a discount process that's inexpensive. It helps you identify a majority of usability problems, and it lets you obtain feedback early on in the design process. You don't have to have a lot on the page to start doing this. You can start with the wireframes. Some of the disadvantages: it requires the knowledge and experience on how to apply these heuristics effectively. You do need multiple experts, and you need time to have them work independently, as well as time to bring together and collect their lists and then send them back out again. It may not reveal major missing functions because, again, however you define the scope of how you're moving through the system is all that's going to be tested. It's not a function test. It's a design fit test. It may not scale well across complex interfaces. It may be prone to reporting false alarms because, again, you're looking for violations. You're not looking for things that work right, so it may err on the side of over-reporting. And solutions are not always readily identified. You're, again, looking and highlighting what the problems are. It may be more difficult to find ready solutions.